calcium. So you should see this blue dot. Yep, this is now performing a search using only the keyword, and you can select one of the items here. But as you know, the real power of SNOMED CT comes from the relationships defined in SNOMED CT. So, for example, if I allow resolve relationships, if I check this option, and if I delete this, and if I say calcium again, this time the SNOMED CT service is also exploring the relationships defined in the DMD subset, and that's why it's taking a little bit longer. And if I just move over, let me see if I can find one with, yep, there you go. For example, this particular DMD item has active substance, which is calcium chloride, and this relationship is explored, is caught by the backing terminology server. I think we are a little bit short on time, so I was going to demonstrate the kind of relationship that the terminology server provides, but I don't think we'll have time for that at the moment. Let's just make sure that we cover everything, and then we can probably go back to that. Okay, the host is giving me the time pretty much every second now, so I think I should hurry a little bit. So this was an example of the kind of non-UI work we did for this project, which is going to be available to you again because it's all open source. And this is a diagram of the implementation that you've just seen. Actually, this is the tooling for it. We've taken the UK release files, SNOMED CT release text files. We've developed certain tools for processing them in an open source database because they are really large files, and the amount of relationships, etc., it's non-trivial. We're talking about more than 210,000 items, concepts in the UK release and relationships. So if you use this tooling, then it gets this release, loads it into a database, then performs some high-performance scripting over the database tables. Then we have a small piece of Java code that produces a special XML file that you use to load the terminology server, which then becomes available. Let me see if I have a diagram. I might have skipped it. Yeah, this was the one. As you can see, this was another tooling. This was another bit of tooling for the DMD. So for all the tasks that you would have to do to feed information to the widgets, we try to create backing up open source implementations along with some tooling, which is again going to be available to everyone. And as a result, we are now at a position where we have a set of flex-based user interface controls. We have some web services that provide DMD items and SNOMED CT to our user interface implementations, and we have some tools that allows us to deploy current up-to-date DMD releases and SNOMED CT releases to this web service implementation. And probably the most important of all, as after almost a year of work, we have feedback, we have know-how that we are now sharing with the NHS team so that they can improve their work on the specification. By having that feedback, they'll be able to provide easily implementable, or let's just say implementation-friendly specifications, so that the challenges of implementation will be diminished, and they'll be able to know the actual outputs, the actual outcomes of the specification process. So what we've learned is there are sometimes certain small but very tricky bits in the specification, and if you change them a little bit, if you modify them a little bit, then the implementation of the specification becomes much easier. And Tim Cheerman's review team working with us is trying to do that. For example, as I mentioned to you, the complicated, powerful look-ahead scroll bar is now a simpler specification so that the next iteration of implementation wouldn't have issues and more technologies can be used for implementation. And I think I need to remind you that our position at UCL was quite unique because we did not have a backing system. We did not have actual clinical input, clinicians to provide feedback about the way the widgets behave, how things look on the screen, etc., etc. So many of you probably have access to this kind of domain information, to this kind of interaction. So things are supposed to be significantly easier for you. So having all of this, what we want to do is to move into a collaborative piece of work, into a collaborative setup with you, where we have a community providing us feedback. I hope you can see this slide clearly. I'm sorry, this is the best I can do with the screen resolution. What we want to do is to have an ongoing process where the specifications are developed only in domain lingo, but then they are broken down into technical requirements which are then implemented in different technologies. So this process, these arrows, they represent time going forward. Sorry, not clear enough maybe, but so in time we would like to provide feedback from the implementation in different technologies so that the specifications always remain implementation relevant. They always remain applicable in real life in information systems. So I think we have a few minutes so that I can just use just 2 minutes to talk about the technology choice, because I think it's very important for us this is the only slide that I'm going to use actually. This is a technology choice. What we did, we used Flex from Adobe. What we did is not a suggestion to you, because we are aware of the fact that there are many technologies out there. You may already be using a particular technology, and in our circumstances, with the experience we had, with the project timeline, with the criteria that we had in CHIME, we used Flex. But this doesn't mean that you cannot use another technology to implement the same specification. As a matter of fact, it will be fantastic if you use another technology to implement it, because then we can see the general applications of the specification in the context of different technologies. So we do not want to give the impression that this is a comparison of technologies and choosing the best one. No, this is just choosing the one that is fit for us in our own context. And the technology appraisal document that we created for this project covers all the aspects, and we are hoping that we will provide an update to that, but that's pretty much work in progress. So all I want to say at this point is our choice of technology is just a startup. It's just a beginning example, and we want to enhance it, but also we want to have other implementations so that we can see the common grounds and the relationship between technologies. Okay, there's a time pressure, so I think I will just stop here, and if you have questions, it would be my pleasure to try to respond to them, or try to answer them. So the host can let me know if you have any questions. So raise hands, please, if you want to ask something, anything you'd like to discuss. I will be waiting.
Yeah, I can hear you, Mike. Hi Mike, sorry, this is the host speaking. If you actually click on the padlock, that will keep a hands-free mode on. Then you'll be able to ask your question. It seems like your microphone's off now.
Okay, that's better, isn't it? Got you. Thanks for that, and thanks very much for the presentation. As you know, I've followed the project for. The question I've got is probably next step. How do we catalyze this community, which needs to be? I've got some meetings in Canada with attempting something similar, but then I've also got a meeting in the near future. Well, let's have a word about it offline, but certainly getting this community going is very.
It's Tim. Thanks for your question, and I think we're overall very keen to listen to and pursue and understand how different parties can use this implementation of the CUI components, but also contribute to either further requirements for specific things which can be shared, and contribute to the eHealth open source community. So if we could have a chat maybe afterwards in more detail, I'd be happy to follow up and connect all that, because in terms of the community, we want that to be self-sustaining. It's not necessarily an NHS-owned community. It needs to be self-sustaining, so we're keen to engage and sort of catalyse anything we can.
There's a lag between you finishing and me starting, but yeah, thanks for that, Tim.
No problem, no problem.